And in this video, I want to comment on the recent 32nd Congress of the Norwegian Communist Party, which took place in June of 2025, about a month after the 39th Congress of the Swedish Communist Party, which I attended as a delegate. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the article in Riktpunkt. And Riktpunkt is a publication of the Swedish Revolutionary Marxist Leninists, who are organized around the Sveriges Kommunistiska Parti, Swedish Communist Party. And I am just going to go over the article, some things they point out. There will be a link in the description to this article. It says, Norwegian communists assemble in Congress. And it was published on the June 10th, 2025, right, in Riktpunkt, which is a publication, again, of the Swedish Revolutionary Marxist Leninists. And it says just basically here, between the 7th and I'm going to read from the Swedish. I'm reading in Swedish, and I'm going to try to like paraphrase, translate, right? You cannot translate literally from Swedish to English. It doesn't work. You have to paraphrase a little bit. So between the 7th and 9th of June in Gardermoen assembled the Norwegian Communist Party's 32nd Congress, and they elected a new party leadership, and the party's main spokesperson will be a person named Runa Evensen. And it says here a little bit of the history of the NKP, which is the Norwegian Communist Party. NKP grundades 1923. The Norwegian Communist Party was founded in 1923 and has a very long history. The highlight of its political activity, of course, was during the time of the Nazi occupation, the Hitlerite occupation of Norway, where the Norwegian Communist Party was part of the resistance, right? So the Norwegian Communist Party engaged in resistance against the Quisling government, which was the puppet government established by the Hitlerite occupation. They talk about during the Congress, they discussed the ongoing plight of the Palestinians in Gaza, and also the whole issue of Israel, capturing the Freedom Flotilla. When Greta Thunberg was in it, and she got deported. International solidarity was discussed, and the Norwegian communists expressed solidarity with communist movements in other countries. Cuba's ambassador till Norge, Maite Rivero Torres, the Cuban ambassador to Norway, Maite Rivero Torres, attended the Congress, the Norwegian Communist Party Congress, as well as a representative from Iran's Tudeh party. And the Tudeh party, of course, is the Iranian Communist Party. They attended. And also the party spokesperson, for the party chairman, or the party administrator, the main party leader, not leader because they have the party spokesperson for Denmark's Kommunistiske Parti, DKP, the Danish Communist Party, attended. And there was Rike J.F. Karlsson and Carl Gunnarsson, which is the vice spokesperson for Sveriges Kommunistiska Parti, the Swedish Communist Party, also attended. So there were representatives from 4 communist parties: Denmark, Sweden, Iran, and Cuba. The ambassador of Cuba participated, as is very good. He didn't just send like a note taker or an embassy official. It was the ambassador himself, right? So it was the representative of the Diaz-Canel government before the Norwegian state visited. And it was really good because one of the things they discussed is coordination of activity between the Scandinavian communists. And this is a good thing, that NKP, SKP, and DKP will collaborate with each other. When I was down when I spent some time in Malmö and Lund, I remember there was a very close collaboration between Sveriges Kommunistiska Parti and DKP. especially with their youth, the communist youth in Denmark and the communist youth in the Malmo side, in Copenhagen and Malmo, they work together, basically. So it's very good. They go to each other's events, and it's very close. All you have to do is cross the bridge, right? It's pretty. I mean, you can just take the metro, like you can take like the train from the triangle in Malmo to like the center of Copenhagen. You're there in a few minutes, so it's not a big deal. Yeah, so that's good. So the same collaboration that exists between DKP and SKP down in the Malmo, Copenhagen, Lund area will also be translated into more collaboration between NKP and SKP more around the Norwegian area, right? Probably southern Norway, Oslo, the Oslo Gothenburg type. I mean, Gothenburg is not necessarily close to Oslo, but it's pretty easy to get from Gothenburg to Oslo. They have a train every they have several trains. You can just go back and forth. You can take, actually there is a train. The Danish train company connects Copenhagen, Gothenburg, and Oslo right up. I've taken that train many times. You can go pretty fast from Copenhagen to Oslo on the Danish train. So yeah, I mean, there is no reason why the Scandinavian communists shouldn't coordinate their activity and yeah. So it's good. They discussed this. Carl Gunnarsson, who was the representative of Sveriges Kommunistiska Parti, made an intervention. He made in the 32nd Congress of the NKP, Norwegian Communist Party. He talked about how we live in a world that inter-imperialist rivalries that translate into repression, austerity, and war, and the cost of these are to be paid by the working people. And it is that the young men and women of the working class who will be sent out to war to fight for the interest of the capitalists. So right, and there's a lot he said. It's a big statement, so I'm trying to I don't want to read the whole thing. I'm going to put a link in the description, and I'd rather you read it. And if you're not it's in Swedish. All you have to do is you can go to Depot or Google and just translate the page with one click. So it's not a big deal, and the translation is pretty accurate. I've tested it. It's okay. He says one of the things that Carl Gunnarsson from SKP said is that the threat of war, of a general war, hangs over the whole world. And it is very important for revolutionary communists, revolutionary Marxist Leninists to start organized opposition from the working class against this. It's a matter of self-preservation. Okay, so we see today a situation that has happened before in other historical periods. Vi ser I dag en situation som echoar de tidigare historiska perioderna, that echoes earlier historical periods. Innan de två världskrigen. So I'll read this again. Vi ser I dag en situation som echoar de tidigare historiska perioderna innan de två världskrigen. We see today a situation that echoes an earlier historical period in between the two world wars. And that, I've felt that, for me, for example, and I wondered this earlier in the summer, are we in 1913 or are we in 1938? Because it feels like both. It's I understand what he means. So he the position of SKP, or at least Carl Gunnarsson, is that it is more like a 1938 type situation, right? So let's see. He talked about the generation of the Second International in the interbellic period, which is true. I mean, what the German Social Democrats voted for war credits during World War I, and then from that they degenerated. This German Social Democrats stopped being revolutionary. They actually contributed to the counter-revolution when they were instrumental in the assassination of Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht in Germany. I mean, it was the Social Democrats. And Comrade Eddie Ligger of American Communist Party pointed this out in one of his, interventions on social media. Because he makes short videos making interventions, and he made this. Oh no, it wasn't this. It wasn't on YouTube. On YouTube, Comrade Eddie Ligger of American Communist Party said this on YouTube in the Midwestern Marx Power Hour. That during, at that time, during the time of the German Revolution, it was the German Social Democrats who told the Freikorps where Rosa Luxemburg and Karl Liebknecht were, and the Freikorps found them and assassinated them on information provided to them by the German Social Democrats. So the German Social Democrats actively collaborated with the Freikorps, which is the precursors to the Hitlerite movement, right? To the Hitlerite takeover of National Socialism. Which, the National Socialist movement was simply, originally under Anton Drexel, was simply a split from the German Social Democrats, which was a nationalist split from the German Social Democrats, the German Workers' Party. So Anton Drexel was simply a nationalist social democrat. That's all he was. But then Hitler penetrated that party, took it over, and turned it into the Hitlerite version of National Socialism, which is, there were other factions in there because, for example, the Strasser brothers did not like this, and they opposed Hitler, and they split from Hitler and founded the Black Front. And then also Ernst Röhm was not really on board with Hitler after a while, and he was about to, separate the SA from Hitler and join the Strasser brothers. But then before that could happen, Hitler acted preemptively with the Night of the Long Knives, and he murdered both Gregor Strasser and Ernst Röhm. And the younger of the Otto Strasser, he escaped to, I think it was either Canada or the United States, I forget where he escaped, and he came back from after the war, and he became like a radical Marxist or whatever. But that's something else, but it's another story. But anyways, back to the article about the Norwegian Communist Party. Don't get me talking about Hitler or whatever. The Weimar Republic is something let's not dwell too much on the Weimar Republic. So anyways, back to the article here. He talked about, Comrade Gunnarsson from SKP, the Swedish Communist Party, talked about how Lenin confronted imperialism, when he was during the Lenin government, the Soviet Union, the early Soviet Union, how they confronted imperialism, and how one of the things that he did, Lenin, is sponsored the communist movement in other countries to try to, in other words, by encouraging the communist movement in other countries, Lenin sought to prevent war, right? Because, to radicalize the working class so that they wouldn't agree with being sent to war and disrupt the capitalists and the imperialists, war plans or whatever. So let's see. And Lenin is, from our perspective, 100 years ago now, right? Let's see. I see what this is so much information, and I only have so much time. 13 minutes. I need to hurry up. Okay, his conclusion is basically, that the working class of Scandinavian workers in Sweden, Norway, and Denmark need, that it is necessary for, the Norwegian communists, the Swedish communists, and the Danish communists, DKP, SKP, and NKP, to coordinate their activity and start looking at themselves in nationalist terms and start looking at themselves as the Scandinavian working class. We're looking here at the Scandinavian working class, right? Because if the workers in Sweden, Denmark, and Norway allow themselves to be divided into three nationalist entities, that divides their power. But if they ignore nationality, then the bourgeois nation states they're trapped in and work across borders. Because basically, from the perspective of a Swedish, Danish, or Norwegian worker, they are citizens of Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. They can come in and out. They are free. The borders between Denmark, Sweden, and Norway are open for them. If you are a Swedish citizen, like a Swedish citizen worker, like a Swedish, Norwegian, Danish person, you don't need to care about the border, right? The border doesn't exist for you between those three countries. So there is no reason why, Swedish, Danish, and Norwegian workers shouldn't collaborate together, and the Communist Party should collaborate and coordinate their activity. It's logical. So that's what Comrade Gunnarsson said. And he concluded Leve van Schapen melan SKP of NKP. Long live the friendship between the Swedish communists and the Norwegian communists. Leve Socialismen and Leve Palestina, right? So yeah, yeah. So now I'm gonna put I'm gonna put a link in the description to this article. And I just want to plug in before I'm going on almost 50 minutes. I'm gonna pray. This is the website of the Norwegian Communist Party, NKP, Norwegian Communist Party, and their logo is People's Power, not Money Power, right? Folkemakt mot pengemakt, right? People's power against money power. Folkemakt mot pengemakt, right? So that's their slogan. Let's see. What do you have here? They have all sorts of really cool. Yeah, they have one thing about the Iranian Today Party, an article about that. And again, you can go to this website and you can just, with one click, you can translate it into whatever other language you speak. It doesn't matter. And the translations are pretty good. I've tested them. And yeah, so let's see. Yeah, stop folkemordet på det palestinske folket. Stop the genocide against the Palestinian people, right? I can read Norwegian, no problem, because I understand. I can read Swedish. I can speak and read Swedish, so Norwegian is no problem. I can read Norwegian. The problem is like talking it and pronouncing it is the problem. But I can read it, no problem, and I can understand it when they speak to me in Norwegian. But yeah, so to me, it's no problem. I don't need to translate this one. But if you can do it in one click anywhere. So, yeah, and the publication of the Norwegian Communist Party is, of course, Friheten. Friheten is both the theoretical journal and press of the Norwegian Communist Party, Friheten. And it's the same thing. They have really cool in-depth articles that you can just translate with one click to whatever language you speak, English, of course. But it's not a problem. It's pretty, they have one thing about, the United States and Norway and nuclear, the nuclear policy, because obviously Norway is a long-standing NATO state. So, and I mean, Norway has the F-35 and you can attach nuclear weapons to those planes. And yeah, I mean, Norway, yeah, but whatever. Yeah, I mean, they have all sorts of really cool articles here. This one is about, when Norway was occupied by the Nazis. This was the kind of propaganda that they put up in Oslo when the Quisling government. The Quisling government was just a puppet for the Hitlerite occupation. So this is one of the Hitlerite posters. Mot Bolshevism, against Bolshevism, and the SS recruited heavily in Norway, and they fought in the Battle of Stalingrad. So this is one of the recruitment posters for the Waffen-SS when they sent people to fight in Stalingrad or whatever. Mot Bolshevism, the war against Bolshevism. So yeah, it was like, yeah. So Norway, unfortunately, Norway has a history with Hitlerism. In fact, the last place, everywhere else in Europe, like the last place where there were like German, like Hitlerite troops or Wehrmacht stationed. I don't want to say German, because if you say German, first of all, I avoid the word Nazi and the word German when I refer to Hitlerism. Because if you say Nazi, then you are conceding that Hitler was the only National Socialist, and that is not a fact, because there was also Anton Drexel, the Strasser brothers, and Ernst Röhm. Revolutionary National Socialism, which is another, you know what I mean? So Hitler, yeah. So not all Nazis were Hitlerites. So I don't use the word Nazi, and I don't like to say the word German either, because not all Germans were Hitlerite, because there were, of course, the German resistance, like people like Count von Stauffenberg. So I don't want to give Hitlerism the idea that I don't concede this propaganda line that Hitler ist Deutschland and Deutschland Hitler ist. I don't really agree with that. So I'm not going to legitimate that by using words like Nazi or German. I prefer to say Hitlerite.